What do rats, frogs, and Geralt the Witcher have in common? Tales of Iron, of course. What's up, nerds? Welcome to InGame. I'm Hoops4, and today I am going to give a review of a hidden gem of a game, Tales of Iron. Tales of Iron is an RPG with Souls-like combat and Metroidvania-style level design, and it succeeds in almost everything it sets out to accomplish. I really can't wait to share my thoughts on this one, so let's go ahead and enter gaming.
Enter Gaming.
Tales of Iron is an action-adventure RPG that sees you play as Reggie, heir to the Rat Throne, through an epic adventure full of creative characters and punishing Souls-like combat. In a war-torn land, Reggie must fight back against his enemies and rebuild his kingdom, meeting plenty of friends along the way. The evil frogs are a special enemy, with war raging between the kingdoms for hundreds of years. As Reggie's adventure progresses, he gains access to various types of armor of different weight classes, and a plethora of new weapons varying in shape and size. These upgrades are very necessary, as the combat in this game is simple, yet brutal. One mistake can be costly even against normal enemies. However, there is a certain rhythm to mastering the combat in Tales of Iron, very similar to the rhythms of a Souls game. There is no doubt the combat is difficult, but it is rewarding once you get the mechanics down. Even though Souls-like is the correct way to characterize it, don't let that scare you away. I found the combat way less intensive than most Souls games, except potentially a couple bosses that gave me a bit of trouble, but I will talk about those more in a minute. Enemies in Tales of Iron have a mix of parryable attacks and non-blockable attacks, symbolized by yellow or red indicators over their head. Parrying the yellow attacks leaves them open to a walloping from you, and non-blockable attacks you just need to roll out of the way. I found that the window for parrying is pretty forgiving, which is a nice edge for you to have in combat. On the flip side, the non-blockable attacks can sometimes hit or miss depending on how you roll. The iframes are a little inconsistent. A quick request before I continue, most of my viewers are not subscribed to the channel, so please consider subscribing. It would really help me out, and more great content's on the way. Thanks. Throughout your experience, you will probably learn the distinct attack patterns of various enemies. There is not an exceptionally deep pool of standard enemies, however it is a fitting number given the game's depth. The patterns will also vary depending on which faction the enemy is from. For instance, frogs will attack in different patterns compared to the flying mosey, and so on and so forth. The bosses are worth noting because they are very well designed. They have wide move pools and truly end up challenging the player, but not being overwhelming, as well as being interesting from a lore front. There are a couple bosses, especially those off the beaten path, which are sure to give Reggie trouble as he whittles down their large health bar. Overall, I found the bosses to be a good step up in challenge, but nothing too bad. The biggest advice is to just learn their patterns and not get greedy. There will be clear-cut chances to take their health, but outside of those times, you are pushing your luck. Most bosses have a move that you can't parry, opening the door for you to take a large chunk of their health. I found that while there were a couple bosses with obnoxious moves that I couldn't seem to consistently dodge, most are well balanced for a boss fight, given you are reasonably equipped. Reggie's equipment is incredibly important throughout his adventure. You get to don your robust rodent with a helmet and armor to keep him safe and looking sharp, a shield for protection, a one-handed weapon, two-handed weapon, and a ranged weapon. I found equipment managing to be one of the most enjoyable side aspects of the game, as the system is really fleshed out with a ton of options. In each equipment class, there are different rarities for your items, which is displayed by their color. Additionally, with your armor, you can target specific enemy factions you want to resist more. So if you are in a frog-heavy area, you may want to equip different armor that has a high frog resistance. All of your armor also contributes to a defense rating, and your equipment as a whole has a weight rating, which affects how fast some of Reggie's movements are, like rolling. For the offensive equipment, they are once again a really fleshed out set with a ton of variety. Your melee weapons can be chosen from lists of swords, axes, and spears, which all attack slightly differently. It's just enough of a difference to add a little variety to how you play, without being an overwhelming change. For the most part, your ranged weapons will be bows and crossbows, with the third class unlocked much later in the game. Artistically, Tales of Iron's hand-drawn art style looks amazing, and fits the fantastical narrative especially well. There is no dialogue in the game, other than fantastic narration. Most characters simply squeak away their lines, while the main story is narrated by Doug Cockle, aka Geralt the Witcher. His gravelly voice does wonders narrating the fantasy tale, and I really couldn't imagine another voice taking his place. There are even a couple Easter eggs in the game referring to other real-world people, and a definite nod to The Witcher in the early DLC.
Better after a long fight. The training dummy's red attacks were too strong to block. It was fast, but Reggie could be faster. Greenward had returned with a ferocious vengeance, amassing an army of unfathomable scale. He burned everything in his path towards the Crimson Keep.
The level design really is exceptional, with dungeons always having another secret around the corner. The enemy encounters across the world are manageable and fun, and didn't ever really get stale. There was a surprising amount of variety in the waves of enemies for such a small game. There is some backtracking through the levels that can get a bit obnoxious, but other than that, I really don't have many complaints as traversal was fairly smooth overall. The game is designed as a set of rooms, and each room gets added to the map as you discover it. However, the levels still flow continuously except for major changes in scenery. Each room has a set of potential enemy encounters, which can get a bit annoying when you have to backtrack, but it's still fun. The map ends up getting to be a good size for this game, and allows you to see any secrets you may have missed. Additionally, you can start to notice which areas of the map are filled with which enemy factions, allowing you to manage your equipment accordingly. Throughout my time with the game, its influences became very obvious, but not in a bad way at all, as the game is still really original. More like homages to the great games before it. Certain stylistic choices and level choices are clearly influenced by Metroidvania titles, namely, Hollow Knight comes to mind. The combat is very Soulsian, which has rhythms and such, so it would be hard to deny a FromSoft influence here too. However, I have no complaints, as I fell in love with the final product. I picked up Tales of Iron with my PlayStation Plus, as it was one of the free games a couple of months ago. It is currently available on all major platforms for $24.99, although if it's in your library, I highly recommend you check it out. My playthrough was around 12 hours on my way to a Platinum Trophy, and, except for part of the DLC, I completed everything the game had to offer. I was overall happily surprised at how much I enjoyed Tales of Iron. I really would consider it a hidden gem, and I am giving it a 9 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more great gaming reviews. Have a good one, nerds. Peace. Thank you for watching, right here on InGame. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content.